it would be foolish to then force the feet together, as you'd be overstretching the outer ankles. So feet together or apart. Hands at the heart center. Attention to the heart center. Breathing through the nose. Finding the pelvic floor. Finding the pelvic floor. So we've got hands at the heart, we're in Tadasana, we're breathing through the nose. We might be moving the feet in whatever way suits you. The way that suits me is sort of laterally, in terms of gathering focus. One can also feel a sense of coming together, some yoga, coming together at the pelvic floor, in the back and elsewhere. Now raise your arms up. Fully extend up, lightly tone the tummy. Fully extend up and lightly tone the tummy. So light tone of the tummy is what it sounds like. There's a sort of lightness, a lagu, lightness. Sanskrit lagu, L-A-G-H-U, lagu. And that lightness is like a dandelion seed, like it floats. And dandelion seeds don't just rise, they drop and rise and go left and suddenly go right. And they've got a degree of spontaneity to them, right? Certainly looks that way. Take a big wide circle, hands to the heart, catch your breath. Inhale, exhale, jump or step to a start. You've just got to adjust something in the background. Light tone in your tummy. Light tone in the tummy. From here, turn your left toes in, right foot and leg out. Turning on the ball of the foot first, finishing off the turn on the heel, inhale, raise your arm. Exhale, descend to Utthita, Trikonasana. Support the leg by drawing in from behind the front leg, towards the front of the front leg. So there's a sense in which the soft and fluid-filled fat cells that are held by the superficial fascia near the skin, those fat cells adapt and find their way into the back of the leg, to all the little valleys and little spaces. And that's a very meditative, breath-centered, subtly changing experience. Inhale calmly, find the pelvic floor. Return to the front, back toes in, turn on the ball of the front foot, finish off the turn on the heel. And you've got the same alignment. Again, there's light tone, lagu. So think of that dandelion seed. You've all seen dandelion seeds, I'm sure, floating along, perhaps even blown them to see them. Perhaps you've even done that. She loves me not. Is that done with her? He loves me. I think that might be done with a dandelion. Anyway, inhale, exhale. The back of the leg in towards the front of the leg, like a sort of meditative melding of that superficial fascia, and in particular the fat cells that are held within that superficial fascia. They meld, so the yogi's mind becomes the mind of a meditator. It becomes softer. It becomes adaptable. It adapts moment to moment to moment. And her breath, his breath, their breath, adapts to that. Changeable, light, lagu, mode. We're not coming up, we're coming down. So bring your top arm down, both hands either side of your foot, externally rotate your back heel and step back to Adho Mukha Svanasana. Pad your paws into a deep weave. Now that's a meditative instruction in that it's absorbing. Sometimes we could think of meditation as something that's sort of abstracted from reality. It's a lovely luxury, a bit spaced out, but it's not at all separate from reality. It's just reality at its most subtle, adaptable, realistic level. So that then filters down to reality in the sense that, a spade's a spade kind of reality. People who think black and white and good and bad and can and can't and success and failure and night and day, all that. So pad your paws into a deeper weave, and that will have an effect on the sort of mundane, real level, know, somebody who's sort of a bit more, what's the word? I don't know. Dualistic, you might say. Okay, come down to your hands and knees. Catch your breath. Allow a bit of movement, say side to side. Follow the breath. Follow the way in which you disappear into this living moment as an act of bhakti, that is to say, worship. Yogis, of course, are involved through their bodies in an act of worship. Now, one foot comes forwards into the place of its own hand, so it's the right foot, it takes the place of the right hand, and vice versa. And then we're going to lift the back knee and play a little. So that might mean backwards, forwards movement, up and down movement. The idea is to land the knee behind the pelvis in such a way that it's well placed, in such a way that it feels you get extension, space, openness, flow, right up the top of the leg as a result. So I could do that for a while, so that adjusting and readjusting. Come up onto your leg, one hand on top of the other. Some people find, by the way, that having the toes tucked under is better and others not. So it's up to you. I'm definitely a toes tucked under at the moment, but I'm open to change. Light tone in the tummy, breathing easy. Remember, the stretch starts in the inner groin. Raise your arms up and feel that stretch. But go further. Because you're a yogini or a yogin, you're into bhakti, into the devotional, the surrender, the blissful, the happy, the interdependent, the interconnected feel of yoga. So give back to the goddess, as it were, as a metaphor. I hope it suits you, the metaphor. What a nice one. Give back to the goddess that which was never not hers, right? So this is like a sense of devotion, a sense of giving, a sense of surrender that eventually points you to your own freedom. It's described in so many different ways as the jiva, the life force, as the atman, the self, as the purusha, the original person, and so on. Okay, come down nice and easy. Back to hands and knees where you catch your breath. Maybe there's some movement. Certainly there's breath. Certainly the yogini is relaxed. She's relaxed and at ease and happy and given. She's happy because she knows what she needs to know. And what she needs to know is this. And she knows it by giving to this. The other foot forward. Similarly, position. And lifting and landing the back knee a few times. Purposing. Artha. Remember Lila Artha Lakshana. Play, purpose and signs. We'll discuss that a bit more length in a while. The back knee lifts and lands behind the pelvis. And the purpose ultimately is absorption. On the road to absorption, we're focusing on landing the knee well in terms of the fluid-filled sacs, the bursa, within the knee. We're also thinking about opening up the groin in a way that attracts our attention into one stream, one flow, ekagrata. So I could do that for another 10 minutes, I'm sure of it, because each time I adjust, it's like tuning in a radio. The signal gets clearer. Climb up onto your leg when you're ready with light, ragu, tone in the tummy, breathing through the nose. Focus on that inner groin, the upward release of the inner groin that centers around the breath. But it's not just a release of muscle, because it can't be, because there's no such thing as just muscle. While you've got a body at the same time as having emotions and thoughts, they're interconnected, and breath too. Raise your arms up. So this sense of giving is a beautiful opportunity. It's a beautiful opportunity. And that opportunity is an opportunity to nadishodhana, to cleanse the nerves, as it were, the nadis and the nadikas. The little nadis too, so the body is filled with nadis, energy channels. And those energy channels get blocked, but can easily flow through giving to the goddess. They get blocked around the concept of self. That's how they get blocked. That's the only way in which they get blocked. That this is mine and that's not mine. I want this, I don't want that. I like this, I don't. It's around I that blockage is created. Come down, nice and easy, back to hands and knees. Catch your breath, maybe move the pelvis. Bring your hands together so that they're together. Voila, ici. Like that. Okay. Like a beautiful sunrise such as we've been experiencing here in the Ook quite recently. So when you make your hands like a beautiful sunrise, you can really feel the 7+1 bones that are called the carpal bones at the front of the hand. You can really feel them. So as you move this way, as you move that way, feel the subtle changes. And breathe, meditate as it were, which means disappear. Now the feet, conversely, are going to be taken very wide. So as you come up, still feel that subtlety of the carpal bones. Take the feet wide, breathe and give. So you're never at the mercy of the way the body is, the way the pose is, right? These are not fixed things. Of course, it's good to think that, yes, the body has certain dimensions and so on, and there's certain limitations due to that. But that's not the whole story. It's definitely part of the story. The way you move is a response to the way things are, and it can realign and change the way things are. So something that's painful doesn't have to be inherently painful. You can change it, not through thinking, not through sort of knowledge of that kind, but through the knowledge that comes through giving, from sort of surrendering thought, feeling, emotion. Then thought becomes a reflection of the goddess. The goddess is one, so thought interdependently knows relationships. And knowing relationships is knowing life. Come forward slow, 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 slow. Okay. Peeling your hands up after tucking your toes under and walking your hands back. We're in the high heel kneeling position, which some people absolutely adore and can't wait to do it. Some people don't like so much. Either way, we're breathing into it, and we can feel the plantar fascia stretch, which is the fascia across the soles of the feet. Now, the plantar fascia is not on its own in isolation. It's part of the fascial links that go all the way, the myofascial links all the way through the back of the body. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms up. We're not going to be here long because I know it's very, very strong for some people. Obviously, if you have metal work in your feet, sit in a regular kneeling position. You can't bend metal like that, not in your feet anyway. Tone the tummy, breathe easy. Make sure the roots of the neck are passive and flowing and free. And the breath is reflecting that, and perhaps this movement. Okay. For the benefit of those that find this difficult, we're coming out and back to hands and knees. Once back on our hands and knees, we'll take deep breaths with the jaw soft. Suchirandrasana. We're going to take one arm, if you've got the screen to the side of you like I have, take the arm furthest from the screen, feed it through palm up. Right? As you come down, the deltoid on the lower arm stretches, extend the other arm out to fingertips. And feel and even contemplate the three main nadis, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna, the three main channels, central and then left and right. Ida means comfort. Pingala means reddish. Sushumna means very gracious, very kind. So these channels just run pretty much anterior to the spine, all the way along its length and further through the head as well, up through the crown of the head and even beyond. That's the central channel. Then either side, sometimes starting at the forehead center, sometimes starting other places, two other channels that might co-terminate with the central channel, either at the breastbone or the secret chakra or at the pelvic floor. Let's think of them at the pelvic floor. Okay, come on up, push with your hands back to center, and then we're going to do the other side. And I'm going to turn 180 degrees around so that I can still enjoy your lovely presence. You don't have to do that. You can just do the other side or turn around if you want. The other arm goes underneath. Similarly, palm up. Then you extend out. Breathing, of course, is through your nose. So it filters and warms and humidifies and slows. 4 main points. They're not the only points. And breath is everything because you're a yogin. You could even have a t-shirt that says breath is everything because I'm a yogin.
Why is breath everything? Because breath represents everything. It's the representative of everything else. What your mind does, your breath represents. It mirrors. And what's cool about it is it works vice versa too. You can adjust your breath to adjust the body, to adjust the mind. Dare I say it? Yes, I dare, even to adjust the universe, right? Absolutely, unequivocally stand by that statement. Now push and come up to hands and knees and catch your breath. A regular Adho Mukha Svanasana will require us to check our hands. Let's do it now, that they're equidistant from the front, the sides of the mat, and that they face the same way as each other. That is to say, the middle fingers both face forwards, and that there's equal space between the fingers of all the hands, or both the hands, and then lift up. How wide are your hands? Up to you. It could be narrow, could be wide, could be shoulder width, could be something different. The important thing is that your hands are equidistant from the sides of the mat, and so are your feet. Then there's movement side to side. Perhaps some people like to walk the dog. I know a lot of yoga teachers talk about walking the dog. If it works for you, which seems to be bending the knees like that, if that works for you, I'm up, I'm behind it. As long as you understand what works means, it means if it helps to hydrate, it helps to bring more flow, it helps to melt some extraneous fascia, it helps to promote, in general, a sense of flow, or vairagya, you could say. Or vairagya doesn't translate directly as flow, it translates as something like dispassion or spaciousness or easefulness towards experience. Your easefulness towards experience is trust, that's shraddha. One of the lists that Patanjali says people use to practice yoga. Shraddha, virya, smriti, samadhi, prajna, purvaka, itarisham, he says. Others put these in front of themselves. Shraddha, faith or confidence. Shraddha, virya like vitality, and so on. Okay, come down. Won't finish that list now. Sit up. One hand on top of the other. You can put a block between the heels and buttocks, and should. If you've got tightness in the knees, the breath should flow. The eyes are soft. The jaw is soft. The brain is soft. The tongue is soft. Perhaps you're rolling slightly. So shraddha, virya, faith, confidence, energy, shraddha, virya, smriti. Recollection. Now this is different from the recollection that Patanjali lists as one of the vrittis. This is a different kind of recollection. It's remembering that what you are is not what you could say you are. Young, old, male, female, happy, sad, good, bad. But what you are essentially is swatantriya, free, spontaneously free. Swatantriya means independent. That means independent of conditions. That's what we should be referring to, that part of our experience that is always free, if we were truly going to use the I am in a sort of ultimate sense. Release your hands and stretch your legs out in front of you. And of course, a block under the bot is a ruddy good idea. Sorry to use ruddy. There is a jolly good idea indeed, because we want the pelvis to tilt forwards enough to give us a little lumbar curve, a natural lumbar lordosis. If you don't have that sitting on the floor, and you've tried drawing the buttock flesh out and back while leaning forwards to the opposite side several times, then a block will do that job for us. That's really important because we need energy to flow. If the spine is collapsed, then energy is all blocked up. You can think about it as the nerves having compression, and that blocks up the way we flow. We're sitting as tall as we can, breathing easily. The hands can be placed flat down on the floor next to your hips or on your fingertips. And we're ranging around left, right, forwards, backwards. And in this ranging, we're looking for spontaneous, kevala, spontaneous lift. Kevala and kaivalyam come from the same root. And Kevala means, well, it's spontaneous, but also like Kaivalyam, aloneness. And that goes together because spontaneity means there's a freedom to act without compulsion. It's spontaneous, it's not been compelled. That again refers to the same thing that smriti, remembering, refers to. Remembering that who I am is neti, neti, not this, as it's said in the Upanishads. Now, some of you might find by moving side to side and by giving yourself to this moment, by breathing freely, things begin to melt, the hamstrings and the back chain. If that starts to happen, the pelvis starts to tilt further forwards, which we would absolutely meditatively encourage. Any grasping, of course, will be immediately mirrored in the body as tightening. So mental attitudes need to be of the kind of sort of giving, surrender, ananda, sort of blissful. So some people will come a little forwards and that feels beautiful. You know, there are subtle increments. Once I had 2 goddesses come into my yoga class. Told you before probably. It was about 20 years ago, a yoga class I taught, maybe more. I'm going to say it was around 20 years ago. I think that's right. And these 2 women who looked like they were probably in their late 50s came into the class, never met them before, never met them since. And we did Paschimottanasana, and both of them did it in the way that I'm doing it now. No grasping, no belts, just breathing, just melting, timeless, no resistance, melting as they moved. And I was dumbstruck by these messengers, I'll call them. They're probably just nice people who popped into the class from somewhere. But anyway, they never came again. And it was a message for me about effortlessness. And it was so graceful, they were so beautiful because they weren't trying and struggling and forcing. They were listening and responding. There was grace. Right? There was grace. At no point did they upadana, reach out. They were akaliko, you know, in the timeless truth. Or akala in Sanskrit. So this is Paschimottanasana. It's irrelevant how far your body's gone relative to anyone else in terms of your yoga success. It's completely and utterly irrelevant. The only thing that's relevant is the grace that you bring. And grace is listening, responding. It's surrender, it's trust. It's a linchpin, isn't it? Faith, trust. And sometimes this is misunderstood as some sort of just blindly believe whatever you're told. You know, that's not what faith means. I don't believe that's what faith means in any spiritual tradition. Faith is a confidence that manifests as giving in the present. Okay, now we could stay longer. I'd enjoy staying longer. We'll come from wherever we ended up, perhaps a little extended forward, to coming up. And we're going to lay down. So if you've got a block under your bum, remove it and put it instead under your head. So laying down on your back with a block under your head. Unless you know your head doesn't tip back and you don't feel dizzy at all, that's fine either way. But many people do find their necks are a little short for a string of reasons, going back down to a short psoas, or tight psoas, I should perhaps say more correctly. Flex up one leg, pull it towards you, breathe freely. Feel it. The yogini is a devotee. She doesn't just pull her leg towards her while she thinks of the past or the future or ideas about herself or himself in the present or their selves. She gives. She loves. She surrenders blissfully. She lets go.
And out of that, out of those flames, as it were, out of that dissolution, as it were, which is represented as flames on the Nataraja, the dancing Shiva, comes the phoenix, as it were, the dancer, dancing out of those flames. Perhaps if you're old enough, you'll remember the introduction title to The Tales of the Unexpected that used to be on the TV, and there was always this sort of naked silhouette of a woman dancing in flames, a very poignant image indeed. Now flex up your other leg and extend. Lift up your head as well. The belly is loaded. That's an opportunity to study, to feel the subtle nuance, the subtle change, and to dance with that subtle change. If you feel it, you're dancing with it. Just think of a toddler at a wedding, never been told what music is, what it's for, bopping to the music, right? Just because they hear it. Flex that back, bring your head down, bring the foot down, bring the other leg down, hands in the upper chest, tuck under the shoulder blades, tuck under the buttocks, catch some deep breaths. Perhaps there's going to be a sigh-like exhale or two. This giving process is certainly advocated here, certainly. Flex up the other leg, hug that. The yogini surrenders herself into bliss, blissful surrender. As she surrenders, she re-arises in her true form. Tada drashtu swarupe avastanam. So Patanjali says, Yogaschitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is where you're not caught up in any of the vrittis. She's dancing in the flames. The flames could be the vrittis, the movements. Vritti comes from the root to turn, to move. So vritti, from that, we decline from vrit to vritti. Now flex up the other leg. Extend and lift your head. Lower back intimate. Neck looked after. You can roll any way you like. This is listening, responding. Listening, responding, if you wrote it down, would be listening forward / responding. Right? They're the same thing. There's no and in between those. It's listening, responding. Flex back, head down, foot down, other foot down. Remove the block from under your head and replace it with your hands. Unless, of course, you don't have a block, in which case just go straight to the hands and breathe easy. A simple but powerful mudra where upadana, reaching out, is just challenged enough. Normally we reach out with our hands for food, for our phones, perhaps, for some other object of entertainment or stimulation or distraction. But here the hands are limited in a mudra, in a seal. Everything's contained. And so it can isolate our twitchiness, restlessness that might be in the nervous system. That's not you. That's not me. That's conditionality. We live in a fast world. Slow down a bit in the last couple of years, but there's still the tendency to reach out. Now flex up the hips. Lift up the head as we did before. Extend one leg. Again, let it move if movement's helpful, so that you don't overload the back. The back should be close to the floor. The leg can move. There's adaptation. Flex back, extend the other leg. Breathing easy, jaw soft. Adaptation is like listening, responding. Flex back, head down, feet down. Everyone takes a deep breath in and out. You know how sometimes someone says something that really strikes you? Several years ago, I think it was probably about 22 years ago, my son's auntie, who's also a yoga teacher and a very nice person indeed, she said to one of the kids, adaptation is the main quality of human beings, the main good quality of human beings. And it struck me, and it stayed with me ever since. And to her, I guess she might not even remember saying it. So adaptation means listening, responding. It struck me because it was true. It rung like a bell. Now bring your feet close to your bottom.
derrière in French. Lightly tone your tummy, suck it in, pull the chest, and then lift up your pelvis. So we've got a little extra stretch in the neck, so we don't have to lift the pelvis too high. We can bounce, we can tilt, we can swoop, we can sway. We're hydrating the lumbar fascia and the thoracic fascia. We're lengthening the lumbar. We're limbering up the lumbar. We're finding the pelvic floor. We're breathing. We're disappearing, re-arising, like a phoenix. That's why that image of the dancing woman in the beginning trail of the Tales of the Unexpected. And I guess you have to be of a certain age or over to remember that. But that's what it was, a silhouette of a naked woman dancing in flames. Right? So that's like the goddess arising out of the flames, free, swatantriya, independent. Okay, coming down nice and easy. She's arisen out of the flames like a phoenix. Lift the feet up, open the angle at the back of the knees, something like 90 degrees. Lift the head. You can feel the belly is loaded intelligently. That means to say there are subtle changes on the micro level. The micro level is the level the yogin is interested in. It's called sukshma. Opposite elbow to opposite knee. Sukshma means subtle, by the way. The hands can slide if it's more supportive for the neck. You don't have to reach the knee. Second side, same thing. Of course, this is just as much for the thoracolumbar fascia as it is for the intelligence of the abdomen, and both for the absorption of the yogini. One more time on each side, with an addition of raising the opposite leg and descending it twice. Right. Still a meditation, I hope, for us all. Taking your own time. You might have finished already. You don't have to be slow. You can be whatever pace. Lower back is something we're really attentive in a loving way to. Back to center if you've finished, and then feet down, and everyone takes a deep breath in, and of course a deep breath out, and just let them flow. Just letting them flow, releasing your hands from behind your head, stretch your arms towards your feet. It's important that you're in the middle of your mat, not to the left or the right. Bring your feet close to your bottom and use the mat to pull your shoulders down away from your ears, stretching the various muscles of the neck, like the scalenes and sternocleidomastoids and the trapezius and so on. Turning the arms out a little as you hold the mat will also open and stretch your chest, as well as deepening your shoulder blades, pressing in a way that's useful to the rhomboid muscles between the shoulder blades. Light tone in the tummy, so that's that in and up. And then on an inhale, we're going to lift up. Allow the pelvis to move up, down, to shake if it wants, to tilt, to bounce, to swoop, to sway. These all have slightly different emphases, these different words: tilt, swoop, sway. But share a common goal, and they can be mixed together in any way. Common goal is to lengthen the lower back, to find the pelvic floor, to hydrate the lower back, to open up the chest. If you lift higher, which higher doesn't mean better, higher just means higher, doesn't it? It's not better when you're higher, Birds aren't better than cats, In fact, cats think the opposite. But anyway, things that are higher aren't better than things that are lower necessarily. Chest open. So, but if you are higher, the arms turn out more. And we form this Jalandhara bandha. That's where the chin and chest become intimate. A bandha that has its roots in Hatha Yoga for reasons we won't go into right now. Come down slow and easy. Let the shoulder blades move away from each other. Let the feet move away. Tuck under the buttocks. Release the shoulder blades entirely. Catch a breath or two. Hands on your upper chest, elbows out to the sides. And deep, honest, expressive breaths. While you're taking those breaths, I'll just give a block for the cat. He likes to sit on a block, and I like to give him what he likes, because otherwise He can get so grumpy, you know, hard cat. So he's a very sweet guy, actually. Anyway, breathing easy. Jaw soft, eyes soft, neck soft. Now, when you're ready, raise a leg. Right? And dorsey and plantar flex the foot, as well as other movements, such as the whole leg moving backwards, forwards, lateral medial, bending, extending at the knee. Any movement, don't have to worry about whether it's fitting in. I think we've all learned something from our Zoom yoga classes that I hope we'll bring with us when we come to classes in real life. And that is swatantriya, this sort of independence. Of course, we teach what seem to be two opposite things. We teach interdependence and we teach independence. Interdependence refers to prakriti. Independence refers to purusha. Right? Prakriti means everything, the phenomenal universe of thoughts, feelings, emotions, physical sensations, what later becomes known as Shakti, right? Because of its liberating potential. Now, once you've raised that leg and given it a good old shake, raise the other one. And similarly, bend, extend, dorsiplantar, really loosen up, shake that. But energy is what you want, huh? Energy. And so, you know, you do whatever. The leg moves towards or away. That's something that I find helpful, but you may or may not. You know, you don't know. I don't know. I just feel it. It is or it isn't. You know, it's helpful or it's not. And you just respond in each moment. You get biofeedback through your initial movements that help you develop and refine. Once you've got that leg moving, we go back to the first. Interlace your fingers behind the thigh. Breathe through your nose. Keep the neck long, by the way. If it needs a little extension, give it so. Give it one. You can also put a block under your head if your neck feels short. 3 elements. Hands pressing into the thigh, thigh pressing into the hands, and importantly, free flow breathing. Free flow breathing. And it draws the yogini into interioception, perception of the space and the way things are moving within space, inside the body, as well as simultaneous proprioception. But if you lose touch with the natural, spontaneous flow of breath, then you also lose touch with the natural, spontaneous relationships between the leg pressing into the hands and the hands pressing into the leg. There are subtle changes happening there all the time. Okay, well done. Bring the leg down. Catch your breath. Deep in, deep out. Raise up the other. Interlace your fingers. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft, throat soft. Press your hands into your thigh into your hands. Breath should be spontaneous as a reflection of coming from spontaneity. How do you come from spontaneity? You give to the goddess, the interdependent. Everything is everything. All things are connected to all things. Nothing exists in a vacuum. So how can anything be independent? Well, nothing is. So that which is, you know, this presents a sort of problem because there is an experience of independence that's free of conditionality that the Buddha described as awakening. Buddha means awake. And described further as Tathagata, the one who is gone, but by inference also the one that has arrived, thus gone, thus arrived, like the phoenix out of the flames. You give yourself, and as a result of giving yourself, you appear in your true form. Patanjali says, Tadadrashtu svarupayavastanam. How do you give yourself? You don't attach to anything in particular. That's why he says, Yogastita vritti nirodha. In particulars arise and pass. The yogin has this sense of upeksha, equanimity.
You could call it love, you could call it equality, you could call it openness, you could call it emptiness. Shunyata. Okay, well done, gang. Foot comes down, leg comes down, roll over onto your side. Bend the leg you're laying on, 90 degrees more or less. The other leg you're going to extend with the intention to open that space at the top of the inner thigh, which again is interioception, the perception of the inside of the body, exactly the same way in which we can propriocept the body in space, we can also interiocept the space in the body. So moving left, moving right, lifting up, bringing down, feeling this beautiful, beautiful giving to the goddess, surrendering to the flames, as it were. Instead of resisting some and grasping others, we give to the flames. We dance with the living moment. That brings with it power. We often think, oh no, I must resist the living moment, otherwise life will just push me around. It doesn't work like that. You give to the living moment. The living moment is what it is. Everything created it, right? But then you're aware of it, fully part of it. You're dancing with it. Then your responses become fully appropriate. That seems to be magical. Suck in the tummy, push, lift, and turn. Elbows, forearms, and wrists. So that magic can appear in the way someone dances, the way someone moves in a yoga pose, like those two goddesses that came into a yoga class of mine some 2 decades plus ago. Breathing easy, jaw soft. And playing. So lila. So I mentioned earlier that I'd mentioned, recap lila artha lakshana, this triage of play, purpose, sign. Lila artha lakshana. The play is the movements we're taking now. The purpose is absorption. So disappearing into the fire, as it were, the interdependent. And the signs of that are breath opens up, confidence arises, spontaneity happens. That's the Lila Artha Lakshana. Top leg on top of the bottom leg, curl up from the side by pushing with your arms. And come back down to the other side. The pose is called Shayana Marichasana, the resting sage. Top of the inner thigh open. No other yoga school will teach you that name because we made it up. But maybe it will spread into the yoga world. Presumably all these poses start somewhere. These pose names, because so many of them are contemporary. So lifting and landing and lifting again, breathing freely as a reflection of your bhakti, your dedication. Bhakti is spelled B-H-A-K-T-I, bhakti. So there's an H in there, which you should enunciate because there's an aspirated ba sound and an unaspirated ba sound. And they're different sounds and they make different words if you use them. So make sure you aspirate your Sanskrit words. Tuck your tummy in, pull your chest forwards, lift and turn. Elbows, forearms, wrists, breath. Elbows, forearms, wrists, come down and you breathe. Now, saying breathe, you breathe is obviously not referring to just, not dying. Everyone's going to breathe. That's not something you need to worry about. But the breath is a reflection of the whole yoga path of giving, of dana. We've heard this word. This is the principle, paramita, or perfection in Buddhist traditions, but not just Buddhist traditions. We find it in most Asian soteriologies, but also in soteriologies even that are from the Middle East, like the sort of Judaism and Christian and Islam. There's elements of this also in those traditions, of course. Top leg on top of the bottom leg. So there's a realization underneath religion or spiritual truth that runs throughout. Now come up, we're going to take a block. Now, if you've got a firmer cork block, then it's better to be on that. So I've got you can use a brick cork block, that's best. I've got a firmer cork block here, but best to be high up actually. So you could be higher than this, but you don't want a squishy surface, right? You want a firm surface. Some people do want a squishy surface in front of them. I'm not going to use this as my squishy surface because it's actually the cat's bed, which I put out because he sometimes likes to lay on it. But it would be here, right? If you were, but I'm not going to. There's no way I'm going to let my face collapse into the cat's bed. It's covered in hair and stuff, probably. Anyway, if you want that squishy surface for reassurance, that's fine. Now, this pose is beneficial simply at this stage. The tricep pressing up against the shins. Breathing easy, jaw soft, tailbone released. Back muscles soft, eyes soft. So you breathe into that. You can feel the groins, you can feel the tailbone, you can feel the breath. So it's beneficial because you get a stretch all the way along the back, you get a stretch right the way to the tailbone, between the tailbone and the pubic bone, you get a stretch into the groins. From there, you could lean forwards and potentially push back a little. So you wouldn't have to lift the feet, but you could lift your bum and keep your toes down. Jaw is soft. One or two people at this point feel like their feet feel so light that they might as well lift them. Well, that's fine if you want to do that, no problem. Bakasana. Breathe into it, keep the jaw soft. Coming down, nice and easy, with the jaw still soft, coming down, that is if you're up, or just releasing out of the pose. And we're going to come out nice and easy and still use that block. We're going to use it to sit on. You might need another block behind you, and you're probably going to need a belt. I haven't got a belt, I won't use one, but I will get one to show you where you might need it. Probably going to need a belt. Huh? So if you haven't got a yoga strap, of course, any belt will do, dressing gown belt, that kind of thing. We're going to come into Marichasana number 1. Now I'm going to fold the leg that's furthest away from you, because that will help me to still keep a loving eye on you. The other leg just jumps out an inch, just an inch, not more. In that way, you can work back into the hip. The leg moves round, moves back into the hip. You sit up straight by pulling on your shin, lifting that lumbar, lifting the chest, and allowing movement that will contribute to lifting and lightening the lumbar. Jaw soft, eyes soft, moving left, moving right. Enjoying the softness of the living moment. The air is moving by itself, everything's soft, everything's spacious. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft, throat soft. When ready, raise the same arm as the bent leg and continue your lift. You can still use your other hand to help pull you up. And then keep that sense of space and extend forwards towards your foot and breathe easy. So I said towards your foot, we might not reach the foot. Perhaps you've got long legs and relatively short arms. That would be very difficult then to reach the foot. Perhaps you've got short legs and very long arms. That's very easy to reach the foot. So don't worry about whether you're reaching the foot or not, and careful what you wish for as well, because if you keep thinking, God, I wish I could reach my foot, your next rebirth, you might have very short legs, incredibly long arms, you'll be able to reach your foot, but otherwise it'll be quite difficult getting around. So breathe easy, jaw soft. Now, this is where the belt may or may not come in. And perhaps for this, I'll swap legs just to make clear. Because we're going to wrap the arm underneath the leg, palm up, thumb facing back. And you might need a belt here to bridge the gap between one hand
and the other. Now, it's worth pointing out at this point a couple of things. If your shin is relatively short compared to your torso, the length of your shin bone, then you might have to lean forwards. That's fine if your hamstrings allow you to do so. They'll allow you to lean forwards without collapsing your spine, right? So someone who can lean a little forwards in Paschimottanasana, no problem. Otherwise, it's sometimes useful to place your foot on a block, right? And you can see how much more upright I am when my foot's raised, giving you an indication that if I had a longer shin, I could sit up really tall. It's not a problem if you're not sitting up tall, if your hamstrings allow the movement of your back so that your pelvis and your lumbar stay in their normal relationship to each other. This is Marichasana number 1. It also has an extended forward part, which we're going to come into slow melting as you move. The buttock of the bent leg may well be light, and that's fine. If you take it slow and melt as you move, magical things happen in this pose. You take it slow and melt as you move. But if you try to get somewhere and you kind of struggle, that's not helpful. Because we know the mind and the body are the same thing. If the body is struggling, if the mind is trying and struggling and reaching out, then the body will mirror that. But take it slow and melt as you move. And then you've got something really enjoyable, really meditative. It's called Marichasana, number 1. Now come back through the twist part of the pose and slowly release. It's a big pose, actually. Extend out your legs. Draw the buttock flesh out in the back. Sit up tall, bend the other leg back to help you with that project. Jump out the straight leg, lift and extend. Lift and extend, get some height. Breathe into that, get some height. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft, throat soft. Maybe moving side to side will help massage the thoracolumbar fascia, which is an area that really does need this sort of massage, actually. Really does benefit from regular. Yoga is not something that's that useful if you just do it once every fortnight and then you don't do any. It's to be done regularly. When you're ready, raise up, light tone of the tummy. Again, you can still use the opposite hand, even at this stage, to help you get that height. Inhale, lift. Exhale, extend. And reach wherever you reach. Breathe easy, breathe honest. Already start your melting. So this could be moving side to side. And you might have your belt ready because we're going to bring the arm underneath and wrap round. And indirectly or directly hold. Breathing through the nose. Jaw soft, brain soft. So if you are leaning forwards, that's fine if the movement starts at the pelvis, right? You know, you could lean forwards as much as you like if the movement starts at the pelvis. But if it's just collapsing your tummy and chest, then it's better off with your foot supported by a block. Breathe easy and calm. So this is the twist part of Marichasana number 1. Then we turn. Now it's really useful if we melt as we move. So subtle adjustments as you go along, as the pose moves along, can make huge differences. So melting as you move, adjusting as you go. Empty of grasping, aparigraha. Why? Because grasping will be reflected in the tightening of the body, and we don't want the body to tighten. We want it to loosen. Breathing easy, jaw soft. Okay. Coming back up through the twist, slowly. And then slowly release. We'll come into an Adho Mukha Svanasana. I'll give the cat a little tickle on his tummy because he's clearly flirting for that. Look at the way he likes that tickle on the tummy. Anyway, there you go, Ralph, there's a tickle on the tummy. And then we're coming into Adho Mukha Svanasana, down facing dog. No offense, Ralph. No offense to the cat. And then extending up through, like you're extending energy, like flicking a wave through a rope, like the way that water finds its way through rock. Move your pelvis, move the shoulders in any way that's helping to conduce to this breath-centered, mind-accompanied, universe-sympathizing flow. Inner groins are open, gluteal creases are deep, front thighs are lifted, tummy is open, chest is open, armpits are open, inner and outer armpits. Side ribs extending to the hips. Okay, well done. Come down nice and easy. Take a seated position that you're comfortable in. I'll suggest Siddhasana, but it could be another. And make sure whatever seated position you're able to sit in it lightly, not too much effort, and most importantly, with space. We're going to just pass a bija, seed, mantra. Mantra means, well, man means mind, and tra can mean several things, including instrument. It's the instrumental case, in fact. Mantra, tantra, yantra. So the instrument of the mind, the way that we can use the mind to tune in. So we're going to send this mantra, Hrim, H-R-I-M, but pronounced Hrim, up through the central channel, making it very nasal at the nasal area to pierce through the Maya Granthi, this little knot of the forehead center, and right up out of the crown of the head. Take a deep breath in, inhale. Hrim. Deep breath after that, natural deep in, natural deep out. May the merit gained in erecting thus goes to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. Om. A minute or more Shavasana. We're going to lay on our backs for a minute or more. A minute is how long it is till the end of the class officially. More is how long you might have if you're at home and you're not under any particular time obligation. If you have more time, definitely go for it. Definitely stay until you spontaneously come up, if you have that time. And it will be in about 10 minutes, maybe 15, at the outset, half an hour. But most of us will just, it will come up spontaneously. You'll get a exponential benefit from coming up that way. But I know some of us have time limitations, so I'll teach it for just a minute, but a magical minute, I hope. some aphorisms from Vairotsana, the wonderful Dzogchen teacher in the tradition of Padmasambhava. The soul cause, the only condition, is immutable and never originating. It can never be destroyed in this timeless, primordial, pure essence of mind. Speculative thought forms cannot affect basic spaciousness. For those of you who have a little time limitation on this morning, we'll begin to bring ourselves around with little movements, such as movements of the toes or fingers, arms or legs. And these instructions that I'll give now can be followed now, or when the time comes spontaneously, or when a puppy comes and tells you it's time to get up. So when you're ready, you can bend your legs, place your feet onto the floor, scoot the buttocks under, let the lower back rest, take a deep breath, and then roll onto your left side when you're ready. Knees drawn up, tummy soft. Bend to your right, again in your own time. And when you're ready to come up, or when otherwise insisted upon,